Hey everybody, welcome back. Lauren and Fraser Bailey here, co-founders of the Bailey Body and the Fat Apocalypse Transformation Program. So today for our weekly live show, we're talking about fat loss and particularly why fat loss can be so hard for so many people and also seemingly easy for some others. So there's, a lot of reasons to that and really simple things when you just break it down. Fat loss isn't always easy, but it's simple. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, why it's so hard for most people and just because of the things that they don't know.
Yeah, I think it's important. It seems like such a common topic that we're going to talk about tonight. Like, why is fat loss so difficult? And most people probably have their own answers to that. You probably know some of the reasons why it's so challenging for you. Yet, the majority of people that we see in society can't achieve fat loss and haven't achieved it. There's a very small group that not only achieve it, but maintain it. Some people achieve it to a degree, but then they put it back on again. So we're going to kind of delve into the psychology about why they put it back on again, why you probably put it back on again, and why you might not be able to get it off to begin with. But we'll also talk about the mechanics behind it as well. So we're not just going to give you a psychological, babble for the next 30 minutes. We'll actually give you some tangible suggestions alongside the mindset stuff as well that you can kind of take and use. Because I think at the end of the day, fat loss is one thing, but, achieving fat loss and maintaining it is a completely different beast. It's a different game. You agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people, the reason that they can lose weight sometimes and then they don't maintain it is because they're going about the wrong process in the first place, and they end up doing something that's not healthy, it's not sustainable, and then they're yo-yoing, or, they get like a short burst of motivation and they do something about it, but they haven't yet taken the approach that this is a lifestyle change and they haven't made it something that they're excited about to make it a part of their life. Like, they're not yet excited about this new way of living. They're just thinking of like a short-term event or something that they want to look good for, and the real reason behind why they're doing it isn't right. And so sometimes even if they do it in a healthy manner and they lose some weight, if they don't have the right motivators behind why they did it in the first place, then they'll end up right back where they started.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to understand the psychology behind fat loss, because the people that we coach and even ourselves, and along this journey, I've seen my view of it shift to beyond that, is that it's not just about a plan and training plan and an eating plan. It's about how does someone think and what triggers your emotional eating, what triggers you going off a plan, what triggers your inability to stick to a plan, and things like that. So maybe we could spend the next 10 minutes talking about some of the psychological pitfalls and things that people need to be aware of in regards to fat loss, and then we'll talk about some of the tangible things. So one of the things that I see first is very often, I think the fitness industry has created this almost unrealistic idea of what fat loss looks like, and that you can drop, all the fat that you've accumulated over, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you can drop that in 2 months and then maintain that. And usually someone who drops a ton of weight quickly will very often put a lot of it back on, because the methods that they adopted to get down to that point were very drastically different from their lifestyle that they had lived for years and years and years. Sorry. And understand that, fat loss is an emotional thing. You're going to have triggers and things around your fat loss. So, for example, some of the things that I see with people that we've coached in the past, some of the people that were really struggle to achieve consistent fat loss, I saw alcohol was a huge problem. And it's not to say that alcohol itself is a problem, but the way that they handle themselves. So essentially, very often the psychology of people is, Monday to Friday, work, stress, doing things you don't particularly enjoy, doing a job you don't particularly, feel fulfilled about. So Friday comes around and you're just ready to let go. You're ready to get out of that life that you're living Monday to Friday. And you basically everything breaks down. The walls break down, the discipline breaks down. And we kind of rationalize it away by saying, well, I've had a hard week. I had a long day at the office. I closed another deal, or I made another sale. I'm going to reward myself. And we essentially, convince ourselves that this bad eating cycle is some kind of reward mechanism, when really it's actually the thing that's punishing us. So it's very important to understand, I think, that is the basic psychology, that you'll have a pattern. You'll have a pattern around fat loss and your week. So look at your week and look at the trends across your week. When do you emotionally eat? When do you get cravings? When do you drink the most? When do you go off the plan the most? You'll start noticing trends. There will be trends in there somewhere, whether it be, you're drinking every weekend when the football is on, or you are, you get stressed out at lunchtime with all the bad food in the office, so you're nibbling on stuff after lunch through the afternoon. There'll be trigger points that you have to start becoming really conscious about first, because unconscious eating is one of the biggest barriers to fat loss. When we just kind of go through our day automatically and are just grazing on things and not really thinking about what we're actually doing. You think?
Yeah, and I think you touched on a good point with the alcohol, and it's something that I want to talk about just a little bit without going on too much of a tangent, because I can kind of get on a roll with this. But I think alcohol is just a good example, because people can commonly associate that with like out of control or addictions and things like that. But in the context that you are talking about it, where people are just socially drinking, they're not like alcoholics or anything like that.
Yeah.
But in that case, I don't see any difference between the alcohol and the food, because I think it's both being used, whether people want to admit it or not. It's being used as like a numbing agent. They're using the food when they're mindlessly eating, or even if they're aware of it, they're going to reach for certain foods when they're feeling a certain way. Even if it's something that they don't acknowledge, if they're not like, oh, well, I'm eating this because I'm upset about something or I'm depressed about something, they will do it unconsciously. If you're stressed out, then you're going to find that you reach for certain foods, and you're just going to have, it's comfort, comfort foods, and it's just numbing agents that, whether it be the biological response that happens within your body with those certain foods that kind of numb the actual feeling that was happening, or if it's just something that food makes you feel good, and so you reach for that when you don't want to think about what else is happening. But either way, I think the alcohol and the food are being used in the same context, and that they're being used as an escape, an exit strategy, or a numbing strategy.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important. Alcohol is essentially a social lubricant, and it helps people escape something. So, if that is one of your struggles, you got to start to say, what am I escaping, and why, and how can I start to shift my reality so I'm not trying to escape something through the form of numbing. I mean, that's the most fundamental thing. And then food and alcohol, it's the same thing. It's a more form of sedation and comfort. So understand that fat loss is such an emotional thing. It's such an emotional journey. And one of the biggest things I think that we've noticed with trends with people is that very often they're capable of achieving fat loss over maybe a 4-week period. Most people have almost like an ADD or an attention span problem when it comes to anything longer term. They can only look at the next 7 days or the next 4 weeks or whatever it may be, and they can't really see beyond that. They can't think beyond that, and they don't really want to. And all in all, like, I can understand that. I can understand that people just want to look at what's going on right now, and they don't want to think too far ahead, because it can be overwhelming when you step back and you kind of look at the mountain ahead of you, and you're like, where do I even begin hiking up this thing? But one of the pivotal things is that a lot of people achieve quick fat loss in a short amount of time, but why is it that they relapse back? Why is it that they achieve some fat loss, they reach a peak, and then all of a sudden everything comes undone again and they go back to how they were? What would you say is that?
Well, I definitely want to touch on what you just mentioned as far as the kind of ADD with programs and approaches, and then the long-term pictures and long-term goals. And I definitely think that it is important to have a balance and to have both, because they're both important. Most of the time, the little short-term goals, like the daily things that you're doing, that's not exciting to you. That's not, like I mentioned earlier, that deep motivating why that's actually going to drive you to achieve what you want, to make it a lifestyle, to stick with that. Those daily things are not that. It's not exciting, and it's not going to get you going, and it's not going to keep you going. That's what the big long-term picture or long-term goal is for. And I think you need to make that big and exciting and audacious, and something that really gets you fired up, and it's like a big dream. I don't even think it really matters if you get to that particular thing, because a lot of times, I mean, that may be a long-term goal that's, say, 2 years out for you. In the process of getting to that 2-year point, your goal could change, and that's completely fine. But what you're always doing, as long as you're following that path, is that you're always moving forward and you're always evolving, and you can change that long-term goal as many times as you want. So I think you need to have that big, exciting, like almost seemingly crazy, goal to achieve. But then you also have to break it down from there, and you have to set what I refer to as process goals. So you need to have the small daily steps, and you need to really celebrate those small things that you do accomplish. I was talking to a coaching client last week, and we were talking about this thing, and I said, don't always focus on, like, okay, I'm going to reward myself with a manicure if I lose 2 pounds this week. Like, who cares if you lose 2 pounds? Because that doesn't mean anything. How you lost those 2 pounds is important, and how you feel is important. It's not just the 2 pounds. So instead of doing that, you could say, my goal for this week, one thing that I think I could improve on would be to be more consistent with my workout. So let's say I'm going to do at least 10 minutes every single day this week. 10 minutes is not like an overreaching. It's not going to stress your day. It's not going to stress your body even, but it's something that will create that routine. So that's a process goal. And if you do that, then celebrate that and be like, I achieved something. I set out, and that you're one step closer to living the kind of lifestyle and being the person of that big goal that you're trying to reach.
Yeah. And I think you touched on a good thing there. Where Lauren was talking about consistency. And I put a post up on Facebook the other day about that. And I said, if I could condense down all my knowledge and wisdom over the last decade in health and fitness into one word, it would be consistency. You see a lot of, shake replacement systems, like the multi-level marketing stuff. You see a lot of cleanses and detoxes and PX90 and, all these different systems. And they all work in a certain, mindset, in a certain frame of reference. But at the same time, the reason why people relapse constantly is because the one thing that they're missing is just some form of consistency. And what I try and say to, some of the coaching clients that we have is, don't, when I'm talking about consistency, I'm not saying to aim for being 100% consistent all the time. It's very unrealistic. And for someone who's struggling, or for someone who doesn't even know where to begin, being 100% consistent is completely unrealistic, and you're setting yourself up for failure from the get-go. And that's why you have such a bad experience with fat loss, because you set these huge goals, these lofty goals, they're way out of your reach to begin with, and you fail time and time again. And you don't look at the failures as a feedback or a learning tool. You just look at it as a cross on the list of life. And that you chalk it up as a bad experience. And those experiences accumulate. And the more they accumulate, the less belief you build in yourself. You get to the stage where you no longer have any, innate belief in yourself that you can achieve anything around fat loss. And that's the biggest problem that we see, is that people lack that consistency. So what I would say to you is that look at what you're doing right now. And this is what I tell our clients is that look at what you're doing right now. Are you working out at all? If not, start walking every second day. And that way you're giving yourself a little bit of rest, because it is a transition to go from being completely sedentary to doing something. Walk every second day and make that your obligation for the week. If every meal is bad, then focus on making one meal every second day good. And progressively phase in the good stuff over time. So maybe in 2 weeks' time, once you've got that down, walk every day and then make one good meal every day as well. And when you get to the weekends, instead of hitting back, a bottle of wine or a case of beers or whatever it may be, halve the amount of alcohol that you're consuming and use soda waters between each alcoholic beverage. That's what consistency is. Consistency isn't following a plan 100% and nailing it all the time perfectly forever. It doesn't happen like that. Consistency is, where are you right now, and how can you get better, and how can you maintain that to constantly keep evolving ahead and ahead.
Yeah, so there's two things. First of all, I think it's what I always say, done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
So the smallest thing done daily is better for you and for you getting to your goal than the big things or, the other things done perfectly every once in a while.
Yeah.
Just starting out with your habit and picking one thing that you can improve on this week and just focusing on that one thing every single day. And, do that for a week, 2 weeks. Once you feel like, okay, that's part of my routine, like I'm starting to do it without even really thinking about it, then pick what's the next thing that you could work on, and then work on that one thing consistently every single day. Even if it's just a tiny little thing like drinking water or going for a walk, those small things done daily are going to give you bigger results than perfection every once in a while. And then I was thinking about when you mentioned consistency and the self-confidence issue. Maybe you want to tell the kind of analogy like with the bank account.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a really good way for people to relate to that. I know
that
really. No, the bank account analogy where, you have a bank account and every time that you say you're going to do something, so if you set an intention that I'm going to work out for 2 hours every day this week, every day that you don't do that is like a withdrawal from that bank account of self-confidence and self-esteem. And so it just keeps knocking you down every time that you can't achieve that goal that was just really unrealistic. Every time you don't achieve that, you're basically like taking another withdrawal from your bank account of self-confidence and self-esteem, and it just diminishes any chance of you feeling good about yourself, having the confidence and the ability to do the things that you need to do to get to your goal.
Yeah, and very often what someone will do is they'll start a program, or whatever it may be. They'll start a new challenge and they'll be excited and invigorated because it's something new, it's novel, they haven't done it yet. They have a little goal that they're aiming for in their head, so they're all energized and pumped up and focused. And that's how most people are, and then they go through a period of unmotivation, motivation, unmotivation. And the cycle does go up and down. How do you manage the periods where you're more unmotivated? And the important thing to remember is that when you're going through those stages where you've gone backwards or you've stalled and you're not making the progress that you want, like Lauren was saying, don't keep setting lofty goals that you were achieving back when you were really, really focused, because back then your focus was high, your discipline was high, your energy was high, and you were achieving those things. If you're trying to set the same things now, most people who can't manipulate their own state, which I would say is 99.9% of people cannot consciously manipulate their own state to go from an unfocused state into a focused state. They need to set goals that they can achieve. So what I would say to some people, say for example, some of our coaching clients, they maybe did really well at the beginning and they went through a period where they struggled. They then might say to me, phrases. Should I be doing X, Y, Z like I was doing when I began? And I say, no, don't worry about what happened there. Right now, we're just teaching you how to walk again. Think of someone, you know, maybe like a professional sports person who is at the height of their game, they're highly athletic, and they get in a car crash and they have to learn how to walk again. You're not going to get that person straight out of the hospital bed and expect them to run around the basketball court and slam dunk the ball. They're going to have to just learn how to walk. That's the same psychology around fat loss. If you're struggling and you've been down and out, you just have to learn how to walk again. And literally, I mean walk. So if you're sedentary, walking is the beginning. That is the entry point back into the life of physical activity. And in terms of eating right, if you're not really sure where to begin, get a book like Thug Kitchen, or get a book, you know, there's lots of recipe books out there. There's like Paleo, oh my God, or Nom Nom Paleo, and different websites. You can go onto YouTube and you can literally Google search workouts, any workout or any recipe. Just consciously take a little bit of time. And if you're not really sure what to make, just have a look at something like that and pull one out and say, I'm going to make this as my healthy recipe today. That gives you a starting point. At least it eliminates some of the thought process, because if you can take out some of the thought process, you'll eliminate some of that procrastination that's probably holding you back. Because we all know that another barrier to fat loss is procrastination. That very often we say, well, I don't have time to cook this stuff, or I don't have time to go for the workout and these things. Reality is that we all have that time. We're just not prioritizing our time right. We're probably too wrapped up in work. You know, we're taking work home with us, and it's distracting us, and we're channeling our energy into things that aren't actually helping us grow and adding to the quality of our life. So you have to be real about that, you know, and until people can actually recognize that and be honest with themselves and say, I've just got to make time, then they're not in a position to change. But I know that most people who are on tonight, you know, you're here because you've probably experienced some of this fat loss stuff before. So you're probably in a position where you want to change. So maybe now, with about 10 minutes to go, maybe let's talk about some of the tangible stuff and that they can do in terms of some of the tips we would give you in terms of fat loss. So like, you know, if it was coming to food or diet, exercise, training, a couple of lifestyle tips, what would you say are some off the top of your head?
Pick one topic and maybe ask me a question.
So if someone was going to come to you and say, what is the best form of physical exercise? I'm completely sedentary. I'm not doing anything right now. What is the best thing to do to start and get the best bang for my buck when it comes to fat loss?
Good question. So I would say if you're completely sedentary right now and you want to start moving, you want to start some kind of exercise, where do you start? Of course, walking is good, but I would even go a step further, and depending on, again, what's available to you. So not only, you know, what your current situation is, like we said, you're completely sedentary, but what's your situation? Like, it's heading into winter now. Is it freezing cold and you have no treadmill at home and you're not going to go outside and walk? Well, then what do you do? Now there's another excuse. Well, I can't get to the gym and get on a treadmill. It's 30 minutes to get to the gym. Don't make excuses. Find a way to do something. And what I think is even better than walking is to get some kind of strength movement in there. So what I would recommend is, you know, even check out our YouTube channel. I have some beginner exercise videos on there. Beginner box squats. That's one video that's on our YouTube that I shared on our Facebook page a while back. I shot it in our living room using our ottoman. Basically, you're sitting down on the chair or an ottoman or whatever you have, and you're standing back up. But you're just practicing the squat motion. You're keeping your weight on your heels. You're keeping your core tight. The squat is one of those exercises that works your whole body, basically, not so much your arms. But you can do prisoner squats. You can hold your hands up by your ears, not behind your head, but out here. You're working your shoulders and you're working your back muscles as well. You work your core to keep, you know, good posture in your squat. You're working your legs, your glutes, everything. Squat is one of those full body exercises, but it's completely easy to do. Even beginners can do it, because all it is basically sitting from a chair and standing up. And go that basic if you need to. If you're completely overweight and you need to have another chair beside you to help pull yourself up with, then do that and get started with, something like that. I would say walking or, basic home exercise options like squats, even just what I call sit stands. So it's a squat where you're actually sitting on a chair and then standing back up again. For someone who's overweight, maybe has bad knees or has been inactive, anything like that, that is an awesome exercise to start with.
Yeah, and I think, if you're a little bit more advanced and you want something that's a little bit more challenging, do what we did when we traveled back to New Zealand and we were in hotels and things, where I did burpees with kettlebell swings. So, in terms of if you don't have a kettlebell, you could use like a gallon jug, any heavy sort of thing that's not going to come flying off, whatever. Or you can get pretty cheap kettlebells from most stores. Get something like that. And if you can't do a complete floor burpee, do an elevated one. So, rather than doing the push-up on the ground, do a push-up on a chair that's off the ground. And that way, so
my 80, what is she, 82 now, Mossy? My 82-year-old grandmother does push-ups against a wall, standing up, because that's what she can do, and it keeps her strong and it keeps her healthy and young. And another awesome example that we just used filming some workout videos for our membership site for our clients. We did a beginner workout, and I didn't want anyone to have excuses that they don't have equipment. So I didn't use any equipment in the video. What we did is we went to the grocery store, and I bought a 20-pound bag of the cheapest cat litter I could find, and it was $3. So for $3, you had a 20-pound weight that's just like a sandbag that you could use for external resistance if you're a little bit more advanced, to do squats with that extra weight, or to press that bag over your head, or to do rows with it. So no excuses. You can go get a 20-pound sandbag for $3 instead of, spending $100 on a piece of equipment that looks, does the same thing.
Yeah, and in terms of nutrition, what I would say to you is that it depends where you're at. If you're more advanced and you already have some of the dieting stuff down, get into a program and start something that's structured. More than anything, you probably just need structure. Everyone needs structure, but it depends where you're at. If you're a beginner and your diet is way off and you feel like you just completely lack discipline, start with things that you can manage on a daily basis. Like Lauren was saying, every morning when you get up, drink a big glass of water. Make that your first thing you do. And in fact, what I do is I squeeze lemon juice into a big glass of water, and I add a small dash of baking soda. I know she thinks it's weird.
No, I'm just laughing. One time I made it for him, and I accidentally, I was just shaking it straight from the container, and a whole clump of baking soda came out, and it foamed all over the counter.
But it literally carbonates itself. So I'll drink that first thing in the morning. You've been sleeping all night. You need to rehydrate to basically, control hunger, reduce cravings, boost your brain function, all that good stuff. Most people are dehydrated, and that's why they crave food. That's why they get migraines and headaches, stuff like that. So don't make a strong cup of coffee the first thing you pound back first thing in the morning, because coffee is going to dehydrate you even more. So you're already in dehydrated state. All you're going to do is do that more. So that's what I'd say the first thing to do first thing in the morning. And secondly is look at the food that you're eating. If it's just way off plan, just focus on one meal a day, like Lauren was saying, or even one meal, every second day. What is one meal that you can achieve that's realistic for you? And start there. Like you want healthy, lean protein, whether it be chicken, shrimp, eggs, fish, something like that. Your fibrous carbohydrates, so your green vegetables. If you're trying to achieve fat loss, green vegetables are probably the fundamental nutrients that you're looking for, because one, they're going to give you a lot of phytonutrients and minerals and vitamins that are probably causing you to crave the bad foods anyway. See, when we're craving bad foods all the time and we're wanting to eat all the bad stuff, it's usually a mineral or vitamin deficiency within us anyway, and that's because we're eating such dull food that's void of any real nutrients. So green vegetables, colorful, red vegetables, things like that, that's first and foremost. And also it contains a lot of fiber. It's going to help clear your gut out, help process some of that processed stuff through your gut, and it slows your digestion down. So essentially, when you're eating that type of stuff, your digestion slows down a little bit. It takes more time to absorb nutrients, and it keeps you fuller for longer. So my suggestion would be, salad or stir fry, some form of green vegetables with as many meals as possible, and healthy fat in there as well. So, avocado, coconut oil, different kinds of nuts that are usually raw and unsalted, those types of things. Healthy fat is important, especially when you're trying to bring down your carbohydrate intake. So things like, oatmeal, muesli, grains, pasta, rice, bread, even potatoes, pumpkin, things like that. Use it in moderation. Don't be having that for every meal, every day. Don't be consuming a lot of carbohydrates around breakfast time, first thing in the morning. Focus on a shift of macronutrients. And I know that sounds complicated, so if it's too much for you, just begin with the basics. Begin with water and one recipe. Challenge yourself to do one recipe, would you say?
Yeah, I think, my one simple tip or trick as far as nutrition goes for fat loss, just starting out, would be, I think, like you mentioned, vegetables are probably the most important thing when switching to a healthy diet and trying to lose weight. You need to get all those vitamins and minerals, the healthy fiber. Like that's going to be the best thing for you is the vegetables. But don't over challenge yourself and try to go from eating like chocolate cake every day to eating Brussels sprouts and kale and cabbage or things that you may not like. Like start with the vegetables that you like. If it's broccoli, cauliflower, something a little bit more basic. I'm trying to think of what's another vegetable that is common that people might like. Yeah, I mean, even carrots, they're starchier. I would go for as much color as you can. So mix it up with some carrots, some green stuff. You don't have to go to eating raw spinach salads or kale salads, but start with some, green leaf lettuce as opposed to romaine. That's kind of
and even don't beat yourself up if you're drinking every day and you're eating cake and donuts and things, and you're starting to incorporate this good stuff into your diet as well. Don't have that black and white mentality where you're like, well, I'm going to start this and I'm going to eliminate everything. Has that worked for you before? Has it been sustainable for you in the past? 99% of people cannot keep the fat off because they take that approach. So what I would say is keep doing some of the things that you're doing. Keep drinking some of the beer. Keep eating some of the donuts. Just don't eat as many. Just don't drink as many. Consciously say, how much did I consume of that thing last week? And beat that. Reduce it down by 1 unit. Reduce it down by 1 donut or 1 chocolate bar or 1 beer or whatever it may be. Reduce that down by 1. Maintain that for a week, and then following week, reduce it down again. Or if it's too challenging to reduce it down that quickly, every 2 or 3 weeks, reduce it down again. But keep adding the good stuff in. Add the green vegetables in. Add the fruits in. Add the whole foods in, along with that stuff. And don't kick your own butt about doing those things. Because eventually, if you do it right over a period of time, that good stuff is going to keep becoming a more and more dominant feature in your life. And this stuff's not going to matter as much. You're actually going to get to a point where this stuff doesn't taste that good anymore. You're going to be less, when you do eat sugar, you're going to feel horrible. And I know it sounds weird, but that's actually a good thing. When I, ask Lauren, when I consume a lot of sugar, I feel terrible. I get migraines, and I never used to. I used to be able to eat all sorts of junk food and stuff. But my body's got to a stage now where it's not that I'm trying to fight eating this stuff all the time, because you don't get to the end goal by trying to fight not eating those things all the time. You get to the end goal by becoming the type of person who doesn't even really need those things to begin with. And I know that right now you probably can't see that. You're looking from your perspective and you think, I could never go without my beer, or I could never go without my candy or anything, and I couldn't imagine my life without that stuff. I love that stuff. You're saying that from your perspective, from who you are right now, not from who you could potentially be in a year's time from now. So remember that with that psychology shift, that it's so important to understand that fat loss is a psychological game, and you need people around you and people guiding you who understand that. I think a lot of coaches out there and a lot of fitness people out there just focus on the diet and the exercise. They don't focus on the mindset of the person. Why are they emotionally eating? Why are they drinking so much? Why are they yo-yo dieting so much? Tap into your own psyche and figure out, why am I doing this? And talk to someone about it. Talk to someone and say, why do you think I'm doing this? Here's my experience so far. I've lost some weight, I put it back on, I've lost it, I put it back on, I've tried this, and this thing. Why do you think I keep doing this? You know, my job is really stressful. My boss puts a lot of expectations on me, or, you know, my kids really drain me and I need sugar and caffeine to have enough energy to look after them through the day, or, you know, things like that. I think it's really important to understand the psychology behind your fat loss.
Yeah, and as you add those healthier things in, you're either going to be so full that you just naturally don't eat as much of the bad stuff. Even, you know, you're not fighting it. You might still have the beers or the ice cream or the cake or whatever it is that you have. But if you just ate a big salad, you really don't have a whole lot of room for a lot of it. So you may unconsciously eat less of that. And then the more good stuff, as you're just adding that into your diet, your body's going to start to crave those things. And you'll naturally just eat less and less of the bad stuff. So
yeah. So, you know, in summary and to recap, you know, focus on small progressions each week. You know, lemon water with baking soda first thing in the morning, a big glass of it. Focus on one meal every day that you're going to eat well. Focus on, if you're not moving at all, focus on walking. If you are already moving, focus on doing burpees and kettlebell swings. Start moving. Make sure that you get enough sleep. Consciously start going to bed a little bit earlier. You don't want to be staying up till midnight on YouTube and Facebook. Get to bed earlier, because sleep is going to be fundamental in resetting your fat loss, you know, your fat burning hormones, your stress hormones, and all those kinds of things. And the last thing is just going to be consistency. That's really what it comes down to, is that the people that we've seen who have done the best haven't necessarily got the most results at the beginning. Some people who have got the best results early on, right at the very beginning of their journey, end up being some of the most undisciplined people a few months down the track. And what you need to understand is that it's a long process and it's an evolution. So understand that you're going to go through periods of high and periods of low. Reach out when you're feeling low. Reach out when you're struggling and ask for some guidance, ask for some help. But understand that consistency is the key. And it's just going to come down to those small progressions. So it's not about adhering to something 100% and being perfect all the time. It's about starting off a little lower and consciously adding those things, like Lauren was saying. Drink that glass of water every morning, mandatory. You know, that even if you have to begin there, that is the thing you do every single morning, mandatory, every single day. And the people that I've seen that have got in the best shape aren't even the ones that train the hardest, and aren't even the ones that stick to the plan the most over a short period of time. They're the ones that may not train all the time, and they may not eat right all the time, but they consistently do the right thing more often than not, 5 to 6 days a week, over a period of weeks, over a period of years, and they look better than 99% of people out there. So understand that consistency is really going to be key. So look at where you are right now. Figure out, what did you do this week? Beat that by 1, whatever it may be. Walking, beat it by 1. Gym, beat it, go 1 more time. Beer, alcohol, consume 1 less. Bad food, consume 1 less, whatever it was. That would be my suggestion when it comes to consistency.
Yeah, make those small promises to yourself so that you add to that bank account of self-esteem, self-confidence, and knowing that you can do it, rather than making unrealistic promises to yourself and then just hurting your self-esteem repeatedly.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Yeah, so we'll be back next week with another topic. Check out, make sure you subscribe to our email list. We'll put out links for that this week so you can get the next topic. Do you want to give them the hormone web form?
Yeah, for anyone who is interested and is trying to lose body fat or trying to just get in better shape, we have a free resource that you can utilize. Go to hormones.baileybodylive.com. So
www.
Baileybodylive.com is where you're probably watching this, unless you catch it later on YouTube. So just plug hormones before that, hormones.baileybodylive.com. It will give you a free hormone analysis survey that you can take just right online. You just answer the questions. Yeah, it's from us. We've put it together. When you click submit, you'll be able to schedule a call with Fraser to go over your results with you. He'll also send you a report based on what he sees in your answers and responses and things like that.
And it's all complimentary. You know, we're just basically trying to help people begin. You know, it's a brief summary breakdown blueprint, kind of like what we've talked about, but more specific things depending on your type of hormonal dysfunction. So that's complementary, and that's basically just to help you begin, because we know that the hardest challenge, I think, for most people is just figuring out where do you start, where do you begin.
Yep.
So that'll be the starting.
That's exactly where you start. Go to hormones.baileybodylive.com and complete that hormone analysis survey so that we can give you some feedback based on your specific situation on what you might need to do next. All right, guys. So thanks for watching, and we will see you again next Wednesday. Bye. Have a great night.